And I hope that Chairman Issa and others have learned a lesson from this. Chairman Issa and members of that committee crusaded for over a year on what was really a fairy tale, claiming that the administration knew that al-Qaeda was involved and wouldn't admit it. And the fact is that when a tragedy like this happens, whether it's something like this or a mass shooting at a school, there's a lot of information that comes out at the beginning that later has to be verified. But the important thing is that Susan Rice and the administration were trying their best to level with the American people.
All right, folks, welcome back. Hour number 2 of the Steve Malzberg Show. Glad you're aboard. That's Joaquin Castro, Congressman, Democrat from Texas, on Meet the Press yesterday. All of a sudden, the New York Times has come out with a piece, and it's got to be definitive. It is definitive. It was the video after all, and al-Qaeda wasn't involved, so all this brouhaha about Benghazi is a bunch of nonsense, and how dare those Republicans make an issue of it. Joining us now to talk about that is our friend, Congressman Peter King. And Congressman, first of all, welcome, and we're always glad to have you, but I do want to, Chairman of the Homeland Security Subcommittee on Counterintelligence and Terrorism, so let me ask you, before we get to that, let me ask you about the terrorist attack, the latest one, and that comes on the heels of one the other day and one last month by Chechen rebels in Russia, not far from the site of the Olympics that are going to take place in a little over a week.
Yeah, well, this shows, again, how dangerous Islamic terrorists are. No matter how you feel about Putin and the Russian government, the fact is this was a terrorist attack on the people, on innocent people. It was a brutal attack, and it shows just how devastating they can be. This was just a reminder that with all the security, and Russia has in many ways far more security than we could ever have, because they are
they're not bound by civil rights.
Absolutely not at all.
Yeah,
and if they could attack there, you can imagine what they can do here. So this is really it should be a wake-up call to all of us about how deadly, how diabolical, and how evil Islamic terrorists can be.
Do you fear for the safety of the Olympics and the athletes?
Yeah, I don't want to be scaring people, but any time you have active terrorists, you have to be concerned. Probably the Russians, in their own way, can provide as much security in a place like that as anyone, but it shows, even with all of that security, what they're capable of. And they may not even necessarily attack the Olympics, just attacking adjacent areas, attacking tourist locations. It's very difficult to stop these attacks unless you are constantly monitoring. And it should be a wake-up call to people in this country who think somehow that al-Qaeda is dead, or al-Qaeda and its affiliates don't have the power they once have. They are very lethal and in many ways more dangerous than they were before September 11th.
All right, let's segue with that. Thank you for providing that broadcaster type segue into al-Qaeda and Benghazi and the New York Times report. I find it laughable that a newspaper with the liberal reputation, the pro-administration reputation, the pro-Clinton reputation of the New York Times comes out with what they call the definitive report, their investigation. And of course, I don't find it surprising, just laughable, that the media takes it and runs with it as if it's the definitive word, and anybody else who differs has a political agenda. Not the Times, but you and others.
Yeah. Again, if there's anyone who has an agenda, it is the New York Times. This story is totally misleading and untrue. First of all, the headline saying al-Qaeda was not involved. Ansar al-Sharia is affiliated with al-Qaeda. As a practical matter, there is no core al-Qaeda. There hasn't been for a number of years. It's been, I'd say, over the last 3, 4, 5 years, the attacks that have been carried out have not been by core al-Qaeda. They've been carried out by these affiliates because al-Qaeda realizes how strong we had become. We had weakened them, so they've metastasized, they've morphed, and the real threat comes from these affiliated groups, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, and certainly Ansar al-Sharia. That is the Al-Qaeda supporter in Libya. They have a training camp near Benghazi, and for the Times to say that that is not Al-Qaeda, if that is the mentality of this administration, that they feel that attacks by these groups are not terrorist attacks by al-Qaeda, then all of our people are in trouble, because they're the groups we should be looking at. That is the face of al-Qaeda in 2013 and 2014. And we've known that for a number of years now. So when the president says al-Qaeda is decimated, he's talking about core al-Qaeda. We've known that for 4, 5, 6 years. Like, for instance, the Christmas Day bombing, the plane over Michigan on Christmas Day.
Right, the shoe bomber, yeah.
Yeah, that was not core Al-Qaeda. The Times Square bombing in 2010, that was
the would-be bombing,
Taliban,
the foiled bombing. Yeah, that wasn't and what difference, to quote from Hillary, really, and I'm not doing it purposely, what difference does it make what they're called, whether it's core or an offshoot or nothing to do with Al-Qaeda? It still happened.
Which is why we have to have monitoring of all these Islamist terrorist groups, and why they still haven't answered the question why there was not more security at that consulate, why there was no military there to protect them, why an ambassador went in with only 2 armed guards. Is absolutely indefensible. And again, if for them to use this as some kind of a cover for the administration, and then to have Congressman Castro the other day saying that this shows that Darrell Issa was wrong, I was wrong, or Mike Rogers was wrong. The fact is, we were never more right. And even, I give him credit, Adam Schiff, Democratic Congressman from California, he was on Meet the Press yesterday, and he said that Al-Qaeda was involved. He said it may have been complicated, but clearly Al-Qaeda was involved.
All right, well, let me ask you about, I'm talking to Congressman Peter King here on the Steve Malzberg Show. What about this video? I mean, where on earth do they come up with that they were motivated by the video? I mean, that was a dead and buried story, and now the New York Times resurrects it.
The most that could be said about that was there could have been some people involved in that mob near the end who had heard about the video.
How would they know, though? How would they know?
I'm just even giving them the benefit of it.
Yeah.
There could have been a few people there. But if you're looking at the totality of this attack, where you had organized mortar rounds, the most sophisticated type of paramilitary or military training, this was an organized attack by a group of paramilitaries. Their mortar rounds come in so effectively. I've spoken to people who were there who were under attack. This was a paramilitary organized attack. And so, yeah, they may find some guy who joined in later on when they were looting the consulate, and he says, I was mad because of the video. Who knows? That could be true.
Right.
It couldn't be. But it had nothing to do. That was like 1% at best of that attack.
All right, now let me ask you this. It came up yesterday with Congressman Rogers and others about the timing of this and the purpose of this. You started by saying if anyone has an agenda, political agenda, it's the New York Times. Do you believe this is an attempt to rescue Hillary, to wipe this off the out of the lexicon for the future going forward, so that the liberal media won't bring it up, and anyone like you or a presidential opponent who does, they'll say, "Oh, that's been settled." I mean, do you believe there was a motivation here to help Hillary?
Yes, I do. I think it's to both help Hillary Clinton and also to take an issue away from Republicans, no matter who the Democratic nominee is, whether or not it's Hillary Clinton or not. They want this issue taken away. And it's part of a systematic effort. Yeah, Susan Rice was on, earlier in the week or last week, whenever it was, basically, trying to downplay the whole thing. And now you have this, and the Times to put it on the front page. When they said no Al-Qaeda presence, I really thought they were going to say there was not Ansar al-Sharia, that they couldn't, because that is Al-Qaeda.
Right.
I mean, so when I saw that, this story is meaningless and baseless, and by putting that headline on it, and I'm disappointed how much the media went along with it, by the way.
Yeah, well, again, shouldn't be surprising at all. Hey, Congressman, as always, thank you for everything you've done for us. I look forward to more in the new year, and to you and your family. By the way, where are you in your determining whether or not you will be a presidential candidate?
I was up in New Hampshire again last week. It's my 5th trip to New Hampshire, and I'm looking at the entire situation. Right now, I'm taking advantage of the opportunity to meet with local Republicans, get invited to places I wouldn't otherwise be invited to, and I'm getting a good feel, and so far it's been a good response.
So where are you in 1 to 10 that you run or not run? I mean,
I don't know. Are you
5 or more or less?
I end up having to file all sorts of papers.
Okay. All right.
I'll make a decision by next year.
And did you like when Boehner said that the Tea Party forced him to shut down the government? Was that a smart thing to say? Because, Cruz yesterday said something, whether you like him or not, that was brilliant and true. It was Harry Reid and Obama that shut down the government. I mean, who do you agree with Boehner or with Cruz?
Not to disagree with Ted Cruz. He's the one who forced that in the House. It was both. Listen, it was Harry Reid was you know, again, they could have worked around it if they wanted to, but also, to me, Ted Cruz was wrong in the way he handled it.
All right, Congressman.
Okay.
Next year, thank you.
Thank you.
Congressman Peter King, ladies and gentlemen, our friend, and just incredible stuff. He, by the way, chairman of the Homeland Security Subcommittee on Counterintelligence and Terrorism. So who better to talk to when we come back? We'll be joined by Fred Fleitz, former CIA analyst, founder and chief analyst for LigNet. We'll continue the exploration of the bombings in Russia and, of course, this New York Times story on Benghazi, all straight ahead right here. It's going to be 2014 in a couple of days. Can you believe it? On the Steve Malzberg Show. I know you didn't know that. Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.